From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. Peruvian opposition leader Keiko Fujimori will remain in custody while being tried for money laundering. A court rejected an appeal she filed at the end of last year for the second time. Fujimori will remain in custody for 36 months while being investigated. She was detained in October. People across Peru are demanding that the Attorney General Pedro Chavarri resign. They say he is delaying the corruption investigations targeting different public officials and former presidents.
Peruvians have protested once again in Lima and other provinces across the country under the slogan "Chavarri out." They are opposed that the public ministry be headed by a prosecutor that is being investigated for corruption, accused of boycotting investigations into other politicians.
He has to quit. He can't serve justice when he's also a corrupt official. Chavarri has to leave.
The Attorney General has proved that he's linked to Peruvian mafias.
Demonstrators say the latest decision taken by the Attorney General Pedro Chavarri have delayed investigations against several public officials involved in the Odebrecht corruption case. They are demanding the government declares an emergency in the public ministry.
We need a deep reform of the justice system, the public ministry, the judicial power. We need a new way for justice to be served.
Chavarri is not the only problem. The real problem is the impunity pact signed between those involved in corruption cases and the officials in the public ministry.
Student and union movements joined the demonstration. They think the fight against corruption must begin by changing the structure of the entities in charge of the judiciary.
All the government and non-government bodies are rotted. People in further regions are facing serious working conditions, and all because of corruption in our politicians.
People outside the capital, Lima, also protested. Demonstrators say they will take to the streets again until Congress approves declaring the public ministry an emergency.
Members of the Mapuche community in Chile are in high alert after the government threatened to apply the anti-terrorism law. The community is condemning the use of this law to criminalize their protests. They now fear evictions and the use of warrants to search their homes could happen. They are also condemning the murder of their members at the hands of the police. The security chief for the Araucanía region said the security law was already being applied and that Mapuche people had already been evicted from 2 of the 7 places they had occupied. He also criticized the mayors of the municipalities of Ercilla and Collipulli, who had argued for dialogue with the Mapuche instead of their eviction. He said the police presence in the region will be stepped up. Our correspondent Paola Dragnik has more from Santiago.
They have already started the evictions. The first ones took place in the Coñomil Epuelo Mapuche community. There, various people have reported on social media that they are being beaten up and getting arrested by security forces. They say that they are currently locked up in police vehicles and being taken to an unknown location. There are several territories reclaimed by Mapuche communities in the Araucanía region, but according to the government, they were occupied unlawfully. The head of Araucanía region, Jorge Aton, gave a press conference where he said that they have received complaints of land usurpation and they have applied the anti-terror law that allows the government to practice evictions and overturn the orders of mayors who are normally the main authorities of the area. This is a clear dispute between the government and the municipality. However, the Mapuche community rejects this move along with the mayors of the municipalities of Ercilla and Collipulli, who had argued for dialogue with the Mapuche instead of the eviction.
We thank Paola for that report. It's been 11 years since the murder of the young Mapuche activist Matias Catrileo, yet calls for justice still resonate. This, coupled with the recent police killing of Camilo Catrillanca, has reignited outrage over the untamed violence Mapuche communities are still subjected to.
Over the past few days, Mapuche communities have taken over several municipalities in the region of Aracuania, including Coyapulli.
Yes, 100% of the offices had to be evicted.
This was the mayor's reaction when a Comunero citizen tried to record his statement. The authorities, particularly the National Police Force, have always treated Mapuche communities this way. The murder of Camilo Catrianca sparked widespread anger. For many, his killing was a painful reminder of the murder of another young Mapuche man, Matias Catrileo, just over a decade ago.
We are oppressed by the state. We cannot be Mapuche. We cannot even practice our culture or pass it on to our sons and daughters without fear.
Catrileo was killed in January 2008. The 22-year-old was shot by a member of the National Police Force while he was participating in a protest over land rights. Many other Mapuche leaders who are currently being persecuted also studied at that school that Catrianca attended. The school has now been turned into a sort of Carabinero force district.
We are here to show them they are in Mapuche territory and to let them know there were a lot of young people who studied here and they have been fatally shot by police, with the state complicit in those killings.
The government of Sebastián Pinera has recently called for an anti-terrorism law to be enforced in the Aracuania region. It's a territory of the Mapuche people. The law does not offer the necessary guarantees for a fair trial, and its use risks the stigmatization of the indigenous community. The Mapuche people are therefore vehemently opposed to this, fearing a rise in violence and illegal arrests.
There's been another twist in the ongoing saga of the no-confidence motion in the government of Guyana. It may be that the vote could be overturned because it has been argued that Sharon Das Persad, the government member who sided with the opposition on the vote, falsely claimed to be Guyanese. Persad has held Canadian citizenship since 1998. And according to Guyana's constitution, a person with dual citizenship cannot be a member of the National Assembly. The Speaker of the Assembly has referred the matter of the validity of the vote to the country's High Court. The Jamaican Ministry of Health has announced an outbreak of dengue fever in the country. The ministry has allocated close to $2 million to combat the epidemic. Dengue fever is a mosquito-borne disease and can have deadly consequences. The former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa has been called to testify in a case involving the murder of a journalist. The public prosecutor says Correa's former ministers of Interior and Justice will also be called to the stand. Back in 2013, journalist Fausto Valdivieso was fatally shot in his car. Correa has already been ordered to stand trial in a separate case where he was accused of orchestrating the failed kidnapping of an opposition lawmaker in 2012. A citizen assembly in Ecuador made up of workers from various sectors is rejecting what it calls the neoliberal policies of the government. The measures form part of an agreement with the International Monetary Fund. Workers fear some of those policies will result in sharp cuts to the education and health budgets. The Citizens Assembly is promising to continue protest action over the government's proposals.
We know that this is a package of very neoliberal policies which the government signed on to with the International Monetary Fund. It's obvious that social organizations and people on the streets will say a resounding no to these policies. We do not want such an agreement with the IMF because in the past, its policies did not benefit the people of Ecuador in any way at all. In fact, what it actually did was create a severe economic crisis. Some may have conveniently forgotten these harsh realities, but remember how almost 3 million Ecuadorians fled their homeland because of these kinds of measures. 375 million was slashed from health, and education funding was cut by 194 million. Who do you think feels the direct impact of these measures? That there will be no money to purchase medicine.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has confirmed he will move his country's embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Before taking office, Bolsonaro said that he intended to follow the United States and move Brazil's embassy to Jerusalem. But until now, he was indecisive, fearing economic retributions from Arab countries. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Lima group has met ahead of the second-term inauguration of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. The Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza condemned the meeting and the participation of the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Arreaza pointed out that the Trump administration is not a member of the group. He described the meeting as a display of humiliating subordination. And in Mexico, another leader from the Morena party has been murdered. Professor Cuthberto Porcayo, a party member from San José del Progreso, was shot dead on Wednesday as he traveled in a car. This is the second murder of a member of the Morena party within the last 48 hours in Oaxaca. On January 1st, Alejandro Aparicio, mayor of Tlaxiaco, was also shot dead mere minutes after taking office. A Central American single mother with 3 children who was about to be deported from the United States has found shelter in a church in the state of Virginia. The U.S. government tried to send Rosa Gutierrez Lopez back to El Salvador, but she sought refuge at the place of worship. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement has a no arresting policy at sensitive locations, including churches, schools, and hospitals.
I was sitting on the couch with them, and I told them I had to go. They were making me go back to my country. And she told me, I want to go with you. I said, no, because the situation in my country is very delicate. There is a lot of violence, and if I take my daughter there, her life could be at risk, just like mine. She started crying because she understands more than the other children. But she became very sad, very sad. And she told me the first day I came to church, she told me, I miss you very much, come, I can't go over there, but you can come every weekend, I told them, and she said, okay.
Bolivian Health Minister Rodolfo Recabado will hold talks with public sector doctors about the government's plan to make health care free for all. The medical professionals began a 48-hour strike on Thursday against the move towards universal health care. The health ministry has said the program will have a budget of around $230 million, but the doctors say that won't be enough. Under the program, close to 6 million Bolivians who do not have health insurance will be given access to free medical care. The National Assembly of Ecuador has begun to debate a reform to the country's criminal laws. Among them, the decriminalization of abortion in cases of rape. Denise Herrera has more from Quito.
The decriminalization of abortion in cases of rape and conception without consent are one of the main issues currently under debate at the National Assembly. In light of this, several women's rights organizations have gathered outside the Assembly to show their support for safe and legal abortion in Ecuador.
We think this is an urgent reform. We defend the decriminalization of abortion since we believe that it is fundamental to guarantee women's rights. We believe that this is a first step towards the legalization of abortion in any case. This debate will hopefully protect women who have been victims of rape by giving them the choice of terminating their pregnancy.
We need that the National Assembly understands the responsibility they have in their hands. Right now, the law forces girls to have the babies of their rapists. A comprehensive law would not force them to have an abortion, but to have the right to choose.
The president of the Justice Commission and lawmaker from the Citizen Revolution movement, Marcela Aguiñaga, opened the debate.
As president of the Justice Commission here in the National Assembly, I can't have my religious beliefs influencing the reforms we are debating. As president of this commission, I am fostering an open, diverse, and transparent debate.
Several feminist organizations and persons for and against the legalization of abortion appeared before the Assembly.
I proposed to the Justice Commission to create a family ministry so that they can create plans of actions to foster a better environment at home. This can only be achieved through family counseling and specialized centers. We need to teach our sons to respect women and so that women don't wear those ridiculous green scarves.
This is not a controversial reality. It is a painful one that is lived by thousands of girls and women in Ecuador and around the world. We deserve the protection of the state. We live in a society that has normalized gender violence, including sexual violence. Just in these last 3 years, more than 14,000 rapes have been reported. And in the last decade, more than 20,000 girls under the age of 14 have given birth.
And outside the assembly, persons for and against abortion have voiced to their opinions.
I'm French. For me, abortion is a right. This is no longer a debate in Europe. It has become a fundamental right for women. They can choose above their body and decide their future.
We are against abortion because the Bible says, "Thou shalt not kill," especially not an innocent person.
The fight against corruption, policies to safeguard the sexual integrity of children, and the use of cannabis for medical use are some of the proposed reforms of Ecuador's criminal law.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. At least 20 Palestinians have been injured by Israeli security forces near the Gaza border during another day of protests for the Great March of Return. Palestinians had gathered near the border to take part in protests against Israel's decades-long occupation of Palestine. Since the beginning of the protests, more than 250,000 Palestinians have been killed and thousands more injured by Israeli troops stationed at the border. The Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir has claimed that he was told to normalize relations with Israel if he wants stability to return to his country. He said this during a meeting with religious leaders in the capital, Khartoum. He, however, did not specify who gave him that advice. Sudan is witnessing widespread protests triggered by a government decision to triple bread prices. An NGO ship operated by the German charity Sea-Watch has called for help after being stranded in the Mediterranean Sea for 2 weeks with 32 migrants on board. The organization said the ship is running out of supplies and the mental health of migrants on board, especially children, was deteriorating. The ship rescued the migrants from a rubber boat off the coast of Libya.
We are here on this boat and we do not understand what is happening. We are not fish, we are not sharks. We are human beings like everyone else. We made this crossing. We risked our lives to get to Europe for a chance to get a better life. I do not understand if it is racism or anything else. We are surprised because we do not understand what is happening.
The ruling coalition in the Democratic Republic of Congo has accused the Catholic Church of bias during the recent elections. The coalition said the church's attitude was partisan and irresponsible. The Catholic Church has condemned the government's handling of the long-delayed elections, which were finally held last Sunday. Results are still to be announced. Many fear violence if the election outcome is contested.
Nevertheless, the Common Front for Congo deplores, denounces and strongly condemns the bishop's partisan, irresponsible and anarchic attitude.
Over 600 people have been affected by an Ebola outbreak in the DRC since August, according to the Ministry of Health. The ministry also said that over 350 Ebola patients have died since the latest outbreak began. The current outbreak is the second deadliest and second largest in history after the one in West Africa in 2014 that killed more than 11,000 people. There seems to be no end in sight for the U.S. government shutdown after another meeting at the White House between Democrats and President Donald Trump failed to yield any results. The meeting came just 40 hours after another round of talks had turned into a war of words between the two camps. The shutdown began in December after Congress refused to approve Trump's $5 billion request to fund a border war between the United States and Mexico.
He said Good afternoon. We just completed a lengthy and sometimes contentious conversation with the president. We agreed that we will continue our conversations, but we recognize on the Democratic side that we really cannot resolve this until we open up government, and we made that very clear to the President. Services are being withheld from the American people. Paychecks are being withheld from people who serve the needs of the American people, and our border security will suffer if we do not resolve this issue. We are committed to keeping our borders safe. That has always been our principle, to honor the oath of office that we take to protect and defend our country and our Constitution. We can do that best when government is open. We've made that clear to the President.
One person has died after tropical storm Bibich landed in Thailand. We have more on this and other stories from around the world.
One person has died and another is missing after tropical storm Bibich landed in the east coast of Thailand. This is expected to be the worst storm to hit the region in 3 decades. Airports and ferries were forced to close, and thousands of people have evacuated from different provinces.
Early morning, it was dark and it was raining. Around 4 a.m., there was a lot of wind and rain. The storm wrecked homes and trees fell down.
Civil servants in Lebanon have staged a general strike to protest Prime Minister Saad Hariri's failure to draw up a new cabinet and resolve the country's ongoing economic crisis. Responding to calls by Lebanon's General Labor Union, public sector employees from numerous sectors refrained from going to work on Friday. It was a winter wonderland in Greece, as a heavy cold front sweeping through Eastern Europe has blanketed many parts of the country in thick layers of snow. As much as 1 meter of snowfall fell in northern and central Greece, closing many roads and disrupting traffic. The forests of Mount Parnitha near Athens were a sea of endless white.
A project in the Cayman Islands to transplant and relocate pillar color impacted by disease appears to have contained an outbreak, so says the island's Environment Ministry. The initiative involved imputing healthy coral tissue from affected reefs, growing them in coral nurseries, and reattaching them to healthy reefs using cement. Experts had diagnosed a combination of black band and white plague coral disease. However, the recent techniques used in Cayman are showing early and encouraging signs of success and could be used to fight similar outbreaks internationally. Cyril Lionel Robert James was one of the pioneering anti-colonial writers, revolutionaries, and activists from Trinidad and Tobago. CLR James, as he was called, was born on this day in 1901. The late revolutionary is remembered for his significant writing on cricket, as well as his contribution to Caribbean history, literary criticism, Pan-African politics, and Marxist theory. He is perhaps best known for his Black Marxist analysis of the Haitian Revolution in his book titled The Black Jacobins. Back in 1986, CLR James spoke about the significance of the historic revolution during an interview 3 years before his passing.
I look back at what the world was always has behind it the struggle of different classes. Different sections of the class can struggle and kill one another, but that is not much a social event as when one social structure is fighting against another part of the social structure. Certain logical and historical things emerge which are applicable to similar periods 1,000 years before or after.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.